Thanks for having me and greetings to your listeners. The EPA is committed to environmental protection. In our mandate, we have to coordinate all activities related to the environment and also regulate activities that have environmental concerns. We are also to exercise oversight responsibility over matters that affect the climate system, and climate affects those sectors as well. So the EPA is committed to providing monitoring for air quality in the country. So EPA has monitors around the country to making sure that we know the levels of pollution of air quality in the country. EPA does advocacy for clean air, that's advocacy for quality air around the country. We know the sources of pollution. We have cement industry, we have pollution from vehicles, we have pollution from land degradation, and we have pollution also from burning of either wildfires or even urban burning. We get a lot of pollution of the air from these sources, and the EPA is not relenting at all in the effort to educate Ghanaians on these sources of pollution of air, and also educating the people on the health challenges, especially that we get from air pollution. So we advocating for clean air as much as possible, especially in the urban areas like Accra. We also know we get pollution of air from landfill sites where we dump refuse, and these are all areas EPA looked at as part of our mandate. However, I feel even with what we already have, if we have to enforce it, we'll be able to achieve the air quality that we need. But again, yes, I said coordination is important. We can advocate for a policy that will help with the coordination. In fact, it is in our mandate to actually coordinate. So for the various institutions, for the various policies that are out there, it's EPA's mandate to do that coordination to ensure that we have the quality of air that we have to breathe. Unfortunate that we keep destroying our protected areas, which include the forests, which include the water bodies, which includes the wetland areas. Particularly for wetland areas, they are important part of our ecosystem. We have some species that only are able to exist in these wetland areas, and they are part of the ecosystem because most of them, birds, butterflies, some insects, they help with pollination of our plants, and that helps us to have food to eat. I mean, that's on a lighter note. We have this wetland also as reservoirs for runoffs. So when there is rain, the water normally moves horizontally or on the ground, and they run off into the wetland. There are storage areas for such surface water facilities. When we fill them up, we leave no storage area for land, so we tend to get flooding, especially in our urban areas, because there's nowhere the water should store or should run off to. And so we are doing ourselves a lot of bad as we reclaiming or as we filling up our wetlands. And I will entreat all Ghanaians that we should preserve our wetland areas. It is part of our ecosystem. We can't cut that off. And so it's an education we have been running. Last week was dedicated for a day for wetlands, and it's because we are not observing or recognizing the importance of wetlands. So I think as a country, we need to respect the environment. We need to respect these different phases of our environment and understand the values they play, the role they play in our environmental system. We have our forests as well, and we know in Ghana, people have started mining in our forest area. Some forests, if you look at the pictures and images, are completely destroyed. We have most of our water bodies taking their sources from these forests, and so the water bodies are polluted right from the source, and they run downstream. And this is a serious worry, serious concern we have to deal with as a country. It's everybody's business in this discussion. Lots of emission from energy sector, it's not just for Ghana, it's a global data. And what I will advocate for from EPA side, obviously, is going renewable energy. So these emissions are coming from energy side or energy sector because we depend so much, overly depend on fossil fuel for sources of our energy and energy input. I will advocate for renewable energies as much as practicable. And obviously, if I'm allowed to start the topic of nuclear energy, it will be another clean source of energy we can tap into. Ghana has agreed to go into nuclear energy. It will just take a while for its implementation, but I believe it's another source that will help give us sustainable power for industrialization and almost clean energy for sustainable development. So I will advocate for such clean sources of energy, of course, including the solar that we have, although solar energy can be expensive, but it's a clean source of energy we can tap into to save our emission and subsequent global warming issues. I think one of the materials in our waste disposal is plastics. So EPA has taken steps to encourage waste segregation in the first place, and also steps to reduce plastic waste, and subsequently to ban plastics, especially single-use plastics in Ghana. We want to take it slowly as EPA. Another step EPA is going to take is to engage the waste managers or waste management companies, and we know one big shot is Zoom Lion in the country. We see that there are lots, probably the waste collection and management is overwhelming for Zoom Lion, as we say. So we encourage other companies who are capable of managing our waste to jump in, to step in, to help with our waste management in the country. It's really overwhelming when you go around, especially in Accra, and you see waste dumped everywhere. It's very unfortunate, and it's not only in Accra, in many cities that are in the country. So we encourage the right companies, or many of them, to be more efficient and effective in collecting our waste, and we can help engineer landfill sites for waste disposal and management. We do also encourage recycling. We know that for our biodegradable wastes, we can recycle them to manures, and for metal waste or e-waste, we can equally recycle them to other products. Our plastics can also be recycled. All of these things, we can achieve them successfully if we learn a culture of segregating our wastes, and also the culture of recycling our waste, and as much as possible reduce the use of plastics, especially the single-use plastics. Early part of next week, we'll have an announcement from EPA. We have already discussed that, and we're going to issue a statement for institutions to start thinking and practicing waste segregation, because we know a number of recycling companies in the country that can help recycle different types of waste. However, because the waste do not come separated, it's difficult for them to pick up these waste products and recycle them. So we will encourage segregation of waste, and of course we will issue a statement early part of next week on this, and also want to engage stakeholders who are into plastics, especially single-use plastics, the shopping complex or shopping malls, the producers of these plastics. We are going to engage them to start thinking of alternatives for their businesses, because Ghana has signed up to the international treaties on plastics to phase out plastics. So we have to go by it anyways. And it's important that we start slowly. We don't want to get hit strongly, so we have to start now and slowly. So Ghana signed up to the Paris Agreement long ago, and leading up to reducing global warming to 1.5 degrees and possibly under 2 degrees Celsius. Ghana has prepared its nationally determined contributions to this agreement. So we have options for adaptation, we have options for mitigation. And so we have a document that helps us on the impact of climate change and what we're going to do. So we can put simple examples like flooding. If we get extreme rainfall, we get heavy rainfall that leads to flooding. What are the plans and what you're going to do to adapt through these processes? We have funding sources. We have tapped into the Climate Adaptation Fund, which we have used to do several activities in the country. It is not enough. It has never been enough. We have mitigation fund we have used to help plant some trees and expand a few enterprises to help mitigate as well, which also helps to create jobs for the youth, obviously. And then you brought in the carbon market as well. So we are working very hard on our carbon market options, exploring companies that we are going to collaborate with to get some credits as well. That gives us some money as well for mitigation and equally for adaptation. So we are in that process as a country, reviewing actually every now and then, based on our population, based on our interests, based on technology in this front. I know in terms of droughts and even for floods, farmers have been provided with improved seedlings or seeds that are climate resilient, and so they are able to grow within a short period of time with little rainfall. A lot that goes into of course crop production. We have even post-harvest losses, which has nothing to do with climate change. We have farm input issues, which has nothing to do with climate change. So there's little that actually is impacted by climate when you look at the agricultural value chain. And so for the climate aspects, I also know that fertilizers were provided for farmers. Training has also been provided for farmers. We have provided climate information services for farmers as to when to plant, how to plant, even the spacing they should put their crops, and the types of soils they should plant, and different types of crops they should actually plant per different periods of the year, have all been done in the past, and still a process going on. In the northern parts, we also know about the dams, because we can have such of water for irrigation, and so these dams are supposed to help provide water for cropping. And the coastal areas, we know about the sea level rise that is causing coastal erosion, and we have seen a lot of sea defense being built. Some are not sustainable in some areas, and we need to put them sustainably. Communities have migrated or relocated in most of these coastal areas for other places too, because even the current sea defense is still not sustainable. The sea is still taking the areas away, and so a few actions have been done. And as I said earlier on, it has never been enough. We need to do more as a country. We need government intervention. We need interventions of the United Nations to help save our people. So I know there are already environmental clubs in some institutions, and these are set up by many NGOs. We will encourage that. So EPA doesn't take that also upon itself, but we will encourage institutions that are encouraging these clubs, and whichever support system we have to give visiting them to give talks, directing them to activities they can do to save the environment, of course, including planting of trees, and also coming up with innovations for solutions for our environment. We will encourage that and be available to support them in the many activities that they seek to do as well. As much as possible, we make sure that we maintain our equipment, especially the monitors, as much as possible. Yes, we have financial constraints, we have resource constraints to making sure that we are up to date, and restraints of using state-of-the-art equipment as well. We have monitors also in companies that actually pollute the air and also even water. What we see is that some companies actually intentionally cut off the connection of these monitors, so we don't get to see the information from there from the EPA office. So we frequently visit our sites to making sure that our monitors are working to record the quality of air and using them for our decision making. Climate and health has become topical, and especially climate change and mental health has become a topic of the day this time. Climate change issue started as a science problem. We're trying to understand climate change and what is there for us in projecting climate change. It has moved on. We have had some understanding to some extent and able to even predict the future climate. At a point, it became a developmental problem, because if the impact of climate change can derail developmental gains, then of course it's a matter of concern. Now, and then it became a moral problem because of the mitigation aspect of it. So it's like we know what to do rightly, and we are not doing enough about it. Now, as I said earlier it's a mental issue. The way it is impacting on people, their livelihood and their properties, it's again has become a psychological problem we need to deal with. So it all boils down to education and the right policies to help our people through this process, and the supporting systems for resilience for our people. So structures need to be resilient. So when we are building, we should understand that there can be impact of heavy rainfall. There can be an impact of heat, extreme heat, and so materials we use for building and gutters we need to build as part of our building need to be resilient or robust enough to withstand the impact of climate. EPA, I think our mandate is clear. For every permit applied, we go to site to inspect if whatever activity will not have environmental violation or impact. We do our assessment to making sure that people are doing the right thing. So yes, of course, there are different permitting institutions. They all have their specific role that they play. So EPA plays its own role in making sure that this, like for example, you cannot build on waterways. EPA will not permit you to build on waterways. EPA is not supposed to permit building on wetlands or filling wetland to build on. The problem with demolishing buildings or built areas in wetland is that even when you demolish, the wetland is already destroyed, because you do concrete that goes down deep into the earth before the building is coming on top. So if you demolish, you only cleaning the surface, and how do you now deal with the concrete that you put on the ground? So what we can actually encourage is allowing these wetland spaces, and some places outside of Ghana or abroad in Europe I have seen wetlands can actually be built. So wetland can be created where you have water running into these wetland areas. So we can create that. It's more like the engineering or environmental engineering. We can create those land. Some wetlands are in areas that are commercially viable places. And so, yes, we can reclaim that, but we need to create other sources for water to run into and for these species to also strive in those places. It's the will that is more important. The will must be there in the first place, and then we find the way around it. We need first to understand the situation, and then we have the goodwill towards that. Then all other things will come also into play. 2024 election, the NDC mentioned that they're going to revoke the acts or that the law that allows mining, actually regulates, not allows mining in the forest area. So the law is to regulate mining in the forest area. This is because the then president had allowed entry into our forest area for mining. And once that activity is going on, we need to regulate it as EPA. So the law is not to allow mining in the forest area, but rather to regulate mining in the forest area. If the president of today makes a statement and enforces that he's not allowing mining in the forest area, yes, the law is no longer necessary. It can be revoked today. Because the president has the power to allow entry into any protected area. That is our constitution. That's what it allows. So even in that law, it is stated there that the president has the power to allow entry into our forests. And I believe that the law as it is, will say, has been misunderstood or has been abused in one way or the other. But the intent of the law is rather to regulate activities of such in our forest area. Once the president makes a statement that we're not going to allow entry into our forests, the law is not necessary again. 4 permits are given for mining, which is legal. The miners pay bonds, and that's an amount of money that is used to restore the lands if the miners do not restore back the lands into its original state, which includes leveling the lands, treating the land, and reafforesting the land. In cases where the companies are still around, it is their responsibility to reclaim the land and also reafforest the land by planting trees and all of that. At the moment, we have a lot of lands that have been degraded through illegal activities, which means that the proponents or those who were mining there didn't even come for permits for us to get the bonds that we need to reclaim the lands. And we have many cases of such in the country. So we have many degraded lands that we need to fix. And this is a government issue. So EPA is supposed to do that. Now we need the funding to reclaim the land, to treat the land, and to reafforest the land that have been degraded, and we cannot find those who are responsible for those degradation. We luckily have a World Bank project that we are doing, but it's all in pilot stages at the moment, and we are able to restore some land in the northern part of Ghana. We need to extend or expand this effort for many other lands that had been degraded in the country, especially in the mining areas. We have this issue happening. So EPA is taking steps to reclaim the land and reafforest this land. That also includes our water bodies that have been illegally polluted by the miners, and that is another area EPA is looking at, restoring back our water bodies, cleaning it, treating it, before Ghana Water can also go ahead with their level of treatment for the potable water that we need in our homes. On top of my head, I just know that it's very expensive. It's in billions of dollars. I cannot say the actual figures here because we can cite many areas that we have land that has been degraded. We are also know of many of our water bodies that are also been polluted, and some have deep levels of pollution that need serious treatment and serious restoration of these water bodies. So for the amount, I know it runs in billions of dollars. I cannot say the actual figures now because it also depends on the landscape, how deep the deterioration is, and how much polluted these water bodies are. So we'll take them slowly. We have been approached by different companies and foreign institutions to help us restore. This Saturday, I will be in Ashanti region to show some river tributaries for some companies to start. We want to pilot their technology to see if it works well, then we expand it to other areas. The good thing is that most of these companies want to support us at the pilot stages for free, and when we are satisfied with it, then we need to come in as a country to procure their technologies to rehabilitate our water bodies, especially in the land. I see the water pollution as an emergency we have to deal with as a country. That should be our immediate and foremost steps to deal with this environmental issue. That's why at the very beginning of my administration, we issued a statement that all mining activities in our water bodies should cease with immediate effect. And we see that it's still happening. And we had a meeting at the presidency for immediate steps that we need to take. So very soon, Ghanaians will hear what the NDC government will be doing in terms of safeguarding our water, cleaning up our water bodies, and protecting our water bodies, so sustainably protecting our water bodies. We have a new act as EPA that empowers us to do more per our mandate, and EPA is going to increase its presence in all districts, all municipalities in the country. So at the moment, EPA has regional offices and area offices, and we do not have enough eyes over every activities in the various districts or communities. So EPA will be expanding its operations vis-a-vis the enforcement and the monitoring that we do, and getting down to the district level. So we hope that per our mandates will be able to do our enforcement, making sure that people who violate environmental values or environmental rules are brought to book. So we have charges that we actually give to companies and individuals that violate our environmental rules to pay permit, and we guide them equally on how to go about their activities in order not to harm the environment. So EPA is increasing its enforcement in terms of human resource, in terms of presence in the various areas of Ghana. The environment. Without the environment, we have no life. And I'll continue to preach this because this is in the environments that we get the air that we breathe. In the environment, we get the food we eat and the water we drink. If we don't respect the environment, we don't value the environment, we are causing our very existence, and we need to value the environment. We will call also on the media to help the EPA in the many activities we seek to do in getting our messages down there for the people, the ordinary Ghanaians, to get to hear. However you do it, that is your role that you play to support the EPA succeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much.